Come sail away, come sail away, come sail away with me. Hey, everybody. Here we are at episode 35. Can't believe we're already 70% of the way to 50% of the way to a whole whopping 100. And I couldn't be happier to have you all along for the ride. A couple of things today before we hop into our story. Go ahead and skip to that part. I dare ya. Pull the plug. First of all, did anyone, because I didn't, did anybody know that dogs were once used as napkins? I heard this on YouTube the other day, so naturally, I fact checked it on another part of the internet, and I wound up finding myself reading this article titled "The Amazing History of Dogs." And wow, dogs do not disappoint. Let me briefly indulge you. Quote, as the centuries passed, the wolves living near humans continued to change. Their bodies got smaller, their ears floppier, they became friendlier and more eager to please humans. Soon, a new kind of creature had developed, the dog. Humans eventually put dogs to work in new ways. Dogs became trained hunters, fighters, and animal herders. Roman warriors marched into battle alongside enormous war dogs. In ancient Egypt, some hunting dogs were so prized that they were turned into mummies and buried with their owners. Dogs helped in less ferocious ways, too. Before people used forks, spoons, and napkins, they'd wipe their greasy hands on dogs that sat by their tables. On icy winter nights, people used dogs as foot warmers. Some European kings wouldn't take a bite of food until their dog had tasted it first. Only then could they be sure the food had not been poisoned. End quote. How awesome is that? Dogs as napkins without being shamed by your parents. They are sincerely too good for us humans. I love those poopers. Next, and this is just something that happened to me legitimately this morning and really threw me for a loop. So, as we do, I was taking one of my morning poos around 11 a.m. when all of a sudden I heard a woman's voice in my apartment. I thought, oh, maybe my brother's girlfriend had shown up randomly to surprise him. But then I heard her yell, hey, we're here to check the fire alarms. And I went, okay. Keep in mind, I had planned a shower after this quick restroom break, so I am butt-ass naked. And I had the door cracked for the stink and the steam. So now I'm sitting there, still pooing, praying they don't come anywhere near the bathroom. I turned on the shower so I couldn't hear anything, hoping they would leave, and I waited like half an hour, just unmoving. And I was a little bit high, so I was just kind of freaking out. Before I eventually peeked outside the bathroom to make sure they had gone, ran and grabbed a towel, ran back. I was honestly just shaken for a couple of minutes. My goodness. Okay, one last thing, I promise. Just a little quick shout out. Yesterday, as I'm bartending, or 2 days ago, I needed to run downstairs to the kitchen for something. I think oranges, maybe. Anyway, a few of the kitchen guys I noticed were listening to my podcast on their speaker. Just blaring down there. I truly thought I was going to fade away from embarrassment, having only told one or two people from work. Suffice it to say, I scurried out of there very quickly, but eventually after calming down a bit and after one of them said they enjoyed it, I hope he was telling the truth, I came to realize how nice it actually was for them to listen at work. And, without making fun of me. So, even though I hate my own voice, I appreciate y'all taking the time to play some of those episodes. So, thank you. All right. Sorry for dragging on a little bit longer than usual today. I promise that's the end of me boring you. My name is Eli, and this is Murder in the Morning. To be frank, I flipped a coin today to decide whether or not I'd like to cover a gruesome case or something a bit lighter. Landing on a lighter story, amid my quest for that, I stumbled across a killer who had operated in Alaska during the 70s and 80s. and I just knew I had to cover this case. I remember Karen and Georgia doing a heck of a job on this years ago, but I had simply forgotten about how wild of a story it really turned out to be. Normally, at this point, I would say, and today I bring you serial killer, blah, blah, blah. But I kind of want to keep it a secret and let you have your own personal thoughts if you have also forgotten the story like I have. My sources today are from Wikipedia and then an article by Joe D. at Oxygen, and the doggy article came from scholastic.com. We begin in October of 1979, 20 miles south of Fairbanks, Alaska, in a town called Moose Creek. Known for two things, Moose Creek is the location of the Santa Claus House and also home to Eielson Air Force Base. A few hunters from the town of Moose Creek came across the body of a young woman in the woods. When police arrived, it was clear to them she had been killed. Sergeant Samuel Barnard of the Alaska State Troopers told reporters there was evidence of strangulation and that she had been shot in the face. A single .38 caliber bullet casing had been recovered at the scene. Quote, the victim was identified as 19-year-old Glinda Soderman, the wife of Airman Jerry Soderman. The couple had an 18-month-old daughter. In August, Jerry returned home from the base. The baby was in her crib, but Glinda had gone missing. Detectives began by interviewing Jerry. He said that the couple had no problems, but that his actions and attitude made them a little bit suspicious, said Barnard. Jerry agreed to take a polygraph test, which he failed. I put him as suspect number 1, said Sergeant Jim McCann of the Alaska State Troopers, but there was just no hard evidence connecting Jerry to Glinda's disappearance. End quote. After she had been found, the forensic pathologist confirmed that Glinda had been strangled first and subsequently shot in the forehead. For nearly a year, detectives continued to work this case, with Jerry Soderman remaining their prime suspect. But before any real progress had been made, tragedy would strike again. On June 13th, 1980, an 11-year-old girl by the name of Doris Oring went missing while out riding her bike. Without a body to investigate, police were wholly unaware that this disappearance would soon connect to Glinda's murder. The day before her disappearance, Doris's brother told investigators that he had seen a man talking with his sister. This man drove a blue car, sported a GI-style haircut, and was wearing a military-type uniform. Although it was a good start, that description could have literally fit any number of Air Force personnel who had taken up residence in the area. Airman Jerry Soderman, currently the number 1 suspect, happened to live in the area, but he didn't drive or own a blue car. Quote, with suspicion hanging over Soderman, he was given another polygraph exam, this time by an expert in the field. The polygraph operator said, this guy's got a random heart murmur and he'll never be able to pass a polygraph test. With no evidence linking him to the murder, Soderman was cleared. Investigators had no suspect in Glinda Soderman's murder or Doris's disappearance. End quote. Can you imagine finding out you had a heart murmur only because police believed you may have been the prime suspect in something to do with your wife's murder and you kept failing polygraph tests? Bloody awful. Poor guy. I feel bad for him. Okay. Now, back to square one, investigators felt lost. Unfortunately, good for the case, but bad for everyone, they would soon have multiple more bodies added to their list. On January 31st, 1981, 20-year-old Marlene Peters went missing. She was last seen hitchhiking from Fairbanks to Anchorage, Alaska. Only 5 weeks later, another girl would go missing, Wendy Wilson, a mere 16-year-old. She disappeared on her way to her boyfriend's house. Now police are scrambling to find these women and the perpetrator, while the community itself is beyond scared. For months, these cases go nowhere, and they remain separate. No one on the force has admitted or even suggested the idea that a serial killer may be on the loose. With only one body still, Who knows who may be out there? But throughout the remainder of 1981, the whole case would break wide open. Wendy Wilson's body was soon found near Moose Creek with the same strangulation marks and a bullet wound to the face that Glinda had suffered from 2 years prior. Then, quote, on May 16th, 1981, 18-year-old Lori King disappeared, and shortly before her disappearance, Marlene Peters' partially decomposed body was found. In October of 1981, not far from Wendy Wilson's body, the decomposed body of King was found near the Eielson Air Force Base. During the investigation, the police, for the first time, suggested that a serial killer from among military personnel was operating in the territory. End quote. Both Marlene and Lori King had been strangled and subsequently shot in the face. Every victim so far discovered had been killed in the exact same fashion. Police may only be suggesting a serial killer, but I'm pretty sure everyone else was confident in that fact. At this point, the small police force in Alaska had to bring in some FBI help. The FBI helped create a profile of the killer, suggesting he is a white male between 18 and 35 years old, single, and not a military man. Not a military man. This profile confused the heck out of investigators, since they had been sure since day one of Doris's disappearance that their suspect was military. Even more confused at this point, the detectives decided to speak directly with the Office of Special Investigations at the Air Force Base in Moose Creek. Detectives asked them to provide any information about any airmen who had shown negative behavior towards women in the past. And throughout that special investigation, 3 men were flagged. 2 of which were very cooperative and wanted to help, seemingly. The third, however, Thomas Richard Bundy, was quite the opposite. Quote, investigators focused on Bundy, who was married with 2 children and taught electronics on the base. He didn't fit the FBI profile, but he drove a blue car, a vehicle Doris's brother had seen just before she disappeared. 2 years passed with no more murders. Investigators believed the killer had died or moved away. Detectives compiled photos of airmen who had transferred, and Doris O-Ring's brother reviewed them and immediately picked out Bundy. We thought he might have been the murderer, but we didn't have any physical evidence, said Barnard, so we needed a confession. End quote. By this time, like they said, Bundy had transferred to Wichita, Texas for an instructor position, but that was not about to stop investigators. In March of 1988, they traveled many a mile down to Texas to interview Thomas Bundy. Oh, and just to be clear, it's Bundy, Bunday, not like Ted Bundy. The investigators approached him softly and as friendly as possible, asking about his childhood and what he was like growing up. To which this weirdo confessed he poured gasoline on cats and burned them alive. Excuse me? Wait, that actually literally just triggered a memory for me. There was this kid, I cannot remember his name, from my hometown who I never saw it myself, but he would allegedly kill cats and drag them around by ropes on their necks. That's what I heard. I'm not saying it's true. Anyways, by day 4 of this interview with detectives, Bundy had had enough and stopped talking, passing them a single note which said, I did not do these things. However, investigators received a warrant to search his residence right around the same time he had stopped talking, and they were able to obtain evidence such as ammunition and hairs from his blue vehicle. The very next day, he confessed. Quote, Bundy told investigator that Doris's body was on the base in Alaska. Bundy admitted that he had strangled her and shot her, and that he had killed the other 4 victims the same way. Because they lacked jurisdiction in Texas, the Alaska detectives could not arrest Bundy until they obtained a new arrest warrant. End quote. Which is total bullshit. I mean, I know maybe there's a bunch of, jurisdictional law, but they should at least be able to keep him in holding or detain him if he fucking confessed. Anywho, while investigators scrambled for this warrant, Bundy took his motorcycle out for a drive and slammed head-on into a truck. Sergeant McCann on the case said this was no accident. Bundy had clearly killed himself to avoid conviction. It was later confirmed that the hairs collected from Bundy's vehicle were Wendy Wilson's. Ballistics also tied the bullets connected to the ones recovered from the other victims. And quote, in August 1986, Doris's skull was found in a remote section of Eielson Air Force Base, not far from where Bundy said it would be. End quote. Unfortunately, due to his apparent and sudden suicide, Bundy would never be charged with these 5 murders. But at least we do know the truth about this evil man and what happened to those women. And thankfully, we have found all 5 women. Although that is a very frustrating end to such a wild story, I really did enjoy writing and researching this case. I don't know, it felt a little bit different. But I hope you enjoyed the story as well. Let me know what you think. And I'm excited to do another one for later in the week. Oh, also, before I go, I went to my first concert ever this weekend, and it was so much fun. I went in New York with one of my friends from work. We stayed in Harlem at this high rise, and it was beautiful. And the concert itself took place in this gorgeous theater in Brooklyn. I hadn't been to New York since 9th grade. I think I might have mentioned this in the last episode, but it was a lot of fun. Had a total blast. Got into one of the clubs for the price of a woman because I let my hair down, and they were like, "Come on." Whatever. It doesn't matter. Thank you again so much for listening. Thanks to your eardrums for putting up with me. I look forward to seeing you later. Bye-bye. Love you.